Choiseul 100 Africa, which identifies the economic leaders of tomorrow on the African continent, recently published its latest findings. Earlier, I spoke to Pascal Lorot, president of the Institute Choiseul.
You know, Africa is full of talented people. You know, you have a growing emergence of women who are making the economy, booming, in Africa. And I must say that when we make some comparison with what's taking place in other continents, there is probably more entrepreneurial spirit in African women than anywhere else in the world. So we have women who are emerging today, who have people, men and women emerging, on different and various sectors, industrial sectors, young CEOs or startups, or people heading institutions, which are very useful for the economic development of Africa. And you have a growing number of industrial sectors, which have their own contribution to the economic development, and which are now led by young CEOs and young economic leaders, which are very, very, how to say that, willing, to contribute to the economic development and momentum of Africa.
Yeah. And where did you find these winners the most? Are there any particular sectors that are dominating?
We can talk in terms of economic sectors and different geographies, The ranking that we have done is covering 47 countries, broadly speaking, over 54 countries in Africa. So we have a broad scheme and a large scale, of operation and understanding of what's going on in the continent. So in terms of economic sectors, we have 14 main sectors which emerge. So there is no one which is dominating the others.
Okay.
We have sectors like NTIC, like institution, like education, like energy, finance, agribusiness, health also, which is a very strategic sector for the economic development. So there is no one emerging more than the others. They are all contributing to the economic development of Africa and to the emerging continent, which is now appearing as one of the key continents in the economic scene. And as regard to geographies, we have been very careful in order to make sure that all the different parts or regions of Africa are being represented in a ranking, and which is the case today.
Right.
So we are working a lot on making sure that even if, let's say Eastern Africa and Southern Africa are very well, are quite important, in a network. But we have also people and young talented people from North Africa, from West Africa, a little less from Central Africa, maybe, which is staying behind the other region of the world. But nevertheless, we take care, to make sure that we identify some guys.
Just moving away from the rankings, from your research and from your readings of the people that made it onto your list, what would you say are the major opportunities as well as the major issues that remain for entrepreneurs on the African continent?
Well, there are two things. First, when you're an entrepreneur in Africa, you have huge scope of opportunities. As you know, there are so many economic sectors where you can do business in Africa. So many opportunities because the continent is lacking of many things. It lacks of some equipment. It lacks in terms of infrastructure, in terms of education too. So there's plenty of opportunities. So I would say that when you're an African entrepreneur, you can go in any sector if you're skilled, if you're well educated, if you get, the mood to do something. So you can succeed definitely in Africa, whatever be the sector, definitely.
Earlier, you alluded to the emergence of women amongst the entrepreneurs that are making it across the African continent. Are we seeing an improvement? Because we know in the past, women have not been able to participate economically as much as they perhaps should, and as much as perhaps we see in other parts of the world.
Well, in a ranking, we have more than 1/3 of women, which is quite significant, as regard to what we could have had in other rankings. So it is first to prove that there is an entrepreneurial spirit, in African women. And so the more we go in depth, you know, in looking for talented people, the more we find talented women. And I would say that there is a female excellence, you know, in Africa, which is very, very strong and which is growing today. And when we compare what's taking place in Africa and what we can observe, you know, in other continents, there are some studies which showed that there are proportionally more African executive women in Africa than on any other continent, if you make the comparisons. So it is very positive things that, because we know that women take much care about education of children, they are much more serious in a way of doing business and so on. So it could be very useful, I would say, for the economic development of the continent and the achievement of some strategic goals.
What about young people?
Well, young people, I would say that in the same vein, you know, you have a lot of talented people. Most of them, I would say, have a good track record in terms of education. Those who have achieved some success and those who are now having high-level positions, you can find them everywhere in all sectors. And you have a growing as I said, population of young, well-educated African people. I would make a specific comment. You know, at the very beginning, when we start looking for talented people, we found people who have been mainly educated in Europe or in North America. But now there is a growing tendency of having these people also being educated in some specific place in Africa, mainly in the countries where there is already a very good high-level educational system. So more and more young economic leaders of Africa are being educated in Africa itself, which is very important.